And we are recording. Okay, great. So this morning what I'm going to do is show you a presentation about band books. And then I've got a handout that I'm going to be giving you. We're going to talk about band books. We're going to do a short activity. And then as a thank you to you guys, he's going to grab you pizza. So afterwards we're going to have pizza at the end. And that's my way of saying thank you for being part of this really important special journey for me. And I've heard really great things about you guys.
You heard about pizza most, right?
Oh, right. And then I have pencils for you guys. Yes. If you need more papers, can you raise your hand and let me know? You're welcome. Okay, one more time. One more. Okay, and then I have pencils. And it is. Okay, so let me ask a question. First of all, when I say banned books, what do you think of? What do you think of? Yes, sir?
Books that are not allowed in certain places.
Books that aren't allowed, yes.
Books that are inappropriate.
Inappropriate for school.
Grade second has books that should be for like higher grade levels.
Books, so she's saying that are age appropriate. Books that should maybe be for higher grade levels. These are all great answers. Anything else? Anything else? Those are wonderful. Yeah. Books that are taken out of the library. Yes, ma'am.
Books that parents probably made a complaint about, so if there's multiple parents doing that, then that book was probably taken out.
Okay, books that parents, anybody else, like any other adults you might think of in your life that might take books out? Or other students? Anybody else? Good answer. I'm sorry, what? Teachers, other students, yeah. Okay, so these are all correct answers. I'm going to give you some actual examples of banned books and why they were banned. And I want to ask you if you've read these books, okay? My understanding is that they are no longer banned. So books can be banned and then they can be unbanned depending on where you live or the year that it is and other social issues that may or may not come up. So let's go with this first book. This is called Animal Farm. This was a banned book. Has anybody heard of Animal Farm by George Orwell? Okay, a couple of you. This was banned in 1963, 1968, and etc. Other years that it was banned. And eventually it was unbanned. I actually read this when I was in high school. Does anybody know what Animal Farm is about? Okay, you do.
Is it about like slaughtering?
Slaughtering animals. So the idea, and they'll even say the front of this, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. So it's the idea of what animals are good and bad in the farm. Can I add to that? Do you have any other comments about Animal Farm? Okay.
I only read excerpts, I never read the whole thing.
Okay.
Because I didn't do it instead.
Yes, ma'am.
Some language?
Yeah, absolutely language. So the reason that it was challenged in 1963 was the use of phrases like masses will revolt and Orwell was a communist. Does anybody know what was happening in the United States during this time, in the 50s and 60s? It was banned in 1960.
Was it a war?
That like 20, 10 years after the
What about the Cold War?
Winter.
There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer. So there's this era in the 50s called McCarthyism, where people were actually put on trial for being communists, and they were really scared about that. So if you look up, you can Google it later, McCarthyism in the 1950s, an effect of that was that books like Animal Farm were banned because they were really afraid of communism in the United States. That's an example of a banned book. I'm going to pass that around if you want to look at it. It is no longer banned. It is high school reading material. Next one is To Kill a Mockingbird. Does anybody know this book?
I think I have the book.
You passed the book. All right. Anybody want to comment on To Kill a Mockingbird? Yes, ma'am.
I think it was banned because it involves the American bird. Isn't that our civil war leaders?
Well, there was issues about, let me tell you why this book was banned. This was by Harper Lee, and it's about the South and the segregated South. It's considered dangerous because of the use of profanity and undermining race relations. This book was banned in 1977. Okay, what was going on in the United States during 1977? I would say the 60s and the 70s.
Segregation.
Big civil rights era, right? Starting in the early 60s, okay? 61 on. So 1977, that was the year that this book was banned. This is about civil rights. If you've never read it, I read it one summer. I was blown away at how amazing this book was, and I would recommend it to all of you, okay? Again, not banned anymore in most places, but it was a banned book at one point. I'll pass that around. Okay. The third book, this looks really innocent, but this book was actually banned at one point as well. Harriet the Spy. Have you heard of this one?
Yes.
Okay. Book was banned in 1983. It was considered dangerous because it teaches children to lie, spy, backtalk, and curse. So somebody said, I don't want this in schools. We're going to take it out of schools, even though it's considered one of the 50 most influential books in children's literature. Okay.
Kids, whatever, they already know how to lie because once they get older. They know whenever your parents say something to you, you're not going to know it.
Yeah, and I would also say that this is somebody's interpretation. So that's a really good segue. Why would this stuff be banned? I'm going to pass this one around as well and go to the next. So, gotta get back on the screen here. The question is, what is intellectual freedom? And I want you to think about this for a second. What is your idea about intellectual freedom? What is your idea about intellectual freedom? Intellectual freedom.
Being able to read something even though others may think not to.
Did y'all hear her answer? Intellectual freedom. Go ahead.
I said being able to read something even though others say not to, or think not to.
That's a good answer. Anything else? So, the American Library Association says that intellectual freedom is the right of every individual to seek and receive information from all points of view without restriction. Okay, it is your right to seek and receive receive information from all points of view. Not one point of view, but all points of view without restriction. That comes from the American Library Association. Yes, ma'am.
So basically means that you can say that this means that you want to find it from your point of view.
From your point of view, right, from your perspective. It is your right to be able to do that. That is absolutely correct. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Wait, so that says that, right?
Why do you have banned books? We're going to talk about that. That's a good question. Why are there banned books? Because some people think that some subject material is inappropriate. But overall, we want to think about intellectual freedom and the rights that you as citizens here have. Okay? That is your right. Yes?
But isn't that the same thing with internet, except this is for books, so what makes it different?
Well, it's for books, but also other materials. And if you look at the handout that I gave you, books aren't only the middle section here. Books are not the only items threatened by censorship. Some other items on here. Now that says 67%, but 18% are databases, magazines, films, and games. Okay, that's subject to censorship. Another 7% are programs. 4% are displays. Think about that. Somebody doesn't like a display, they can censor that display. Well, they can try to censor that display, I should say. Why is intellectual freedom important? It is our basis for democracy. Okay? To do so responsibly requires well-informed citizens. I took this from the American Library Association website. So if you go on there, you'll be able to see that. But if you are a well-informed citizen, you are provided libraries. Okay, so what the library does here is providing ideas, information, and is allowing you to inform yourself. Okay? Ideas and information, you inform yourself, and from that, you make your decisions. So it's important because this is the basis of holding, receiving, and disseminating information, making decisions about that information based on your own personal point of view and your own beliefs. Okay? But if we are censored, we're taking away some of that information, and we're basically channeling that information. So again, intellectual freedom allows us to make well-informed citizens, which are our foundation for our democracy. What is censorship? Some of you have already said that. Does anybody have any ideas? What is censorship?
Hiding or taking away things that they feel is inappropriate or is not right to do so.
Hiding or taking away. What else? What is censorship?
I mean, I guess the word is, the main word is censor something.
To censor? Okay. And what do you mean by
To like mark out or like
to mark out?
not allowed to be seen.
Not allowed to be seen. I like that.
To like rewrite and make it to where it's not inappropriate.
Ooh, yeah. Did you hear what she said? To rewrite, to make it inappropriate. So to take somebody's written word and make it a little bit different. Okay, that's censorship. All good answers. Again, according to the American Library Association, censorship is the suppression of ideas and information that certain persons, individuals, groups, government officials find objectionable or dangerous. So we have to ask ourselves, what is objectionable and dangerous? These people come in and they say that certain ideas and information, depending on their points of view, are objectionable and dangerous. But as you can see, Animal Farm was considered objectionable and dangerous because it said something like the masses will revolt. It's a bunch of farm animals. But they were scared enough about that that they banned that book. Okay? Harriet the Spy teaches children to lie, spy, backtalk, and curse. So that book was banned in 1983. And then To Kill a Mockingbird undermines race relations, but it's actually a really important book in American literature. Again, read that book. One book today, I would recommend reading that book. Okay, examples of where you can encounter censorship. Where do you think? Yes, ma'am. Local libraries, yeah.
Television.
Yeah, absolutely. A billboard, yeah. Online libraries, anywhere else? Anywhere else? Yes, sir.
There's what someone said, someone's like what they say.
What they say, could that be censored?
It would be like if they if people say things or something.
In what setting would somebody's words censor you? What setting?
Like, if you're on an electoral, on stage.
On stage? Okay, so like a theater production maybe? What about television? Would that be a place?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Maybe politics.
Maybe politics. Okay, so maybe that's an area too, and that's not stupid. Where could you encounter censorship? Libraries, that's the number one. Okay, bookstores, video stores, schools, art galleries. Who censors? It's usually people who have really good intentions. They are concerned citizens, most likely. They come in and say, I don't think that's appropriate material, and they do it from a place of concern. So if you look on your handout, who initiates challenges to materials, the largest number is patrons, 42%. The next number is, I can't read that, parents. What's the next one? Board administration. Librarians do censor sometimes, 6%, very small percentage. Then it's followed by political and religious groups, elected officials, and then 1% is by students. Okay. Vast majority is patrons. They come in and they go, I don't think that book is appropriate. And then they challenge it, and that's where you get book challenges. I think last year there were 327 book challenges. I looked at that statistic last night. In the United States, 327 books that were challenged. How many of them were actually banned? Depends on the district, depends on the city. Food for thought, I like that piece of picture. Would-be censors are exercising the same rights that librarians seek to protect. It is their right to challenge. It is absolutely their right because they're exercising their First Amendment right. But it's your right to say, that is my a book that I want to read, so I want that book. It's okay for them to challenge, just as it's okay for you to say, no, that's material that I want. Okay? That's important. Yes, ma'am.
What if you go against the rules and read the locations?
Well, a banned book means it's been pulled out, right? Sometimes it's been put in a different spot that it's hard to access. You want to add to that?
What was it? Like, what was it?
She said, what if you go against the rules and you read a banned book?
Can you read a big book? Oh, that's nothing. I mean, you can read whatever you want to read. It's just where you get it from is the problem. Like, you can get it from a store. Barnes & Noble will sell it if we don't have it, if we can't read it. And nobody's stopping at Barnes & Noble. I mean, they want your money. They don't care what you read.
And banning the book is not about like making sure you don't read it. It's about making sure that that specific place doesn't give you access to it. So this happens most of the time like in school libraries. They don't want you to be able to access that material there.
Basically, they're just sensing the environment within the library to make sure whatever material you read is not in school.
That's exactly right. Exactly. Yes,
So they kind of want to keep like in a way a good reputation for that area.
I don't know about that.
Like we're all good reputation right now, like we have to like make places good, like and then kind of keep it like a clean, good environment.
Well, I mean, like some of the stuff that we that banned isn't necessarily like bad. Some of them are like award winners. They're award winners and they're amazing. And they're just some of the content might not be age appropriate. So we have to make sure that what we buy is different from a school in, like, some Nacogdoches, Texas.
No.
Exactly. So what they find offensive, you guys might not find offensive because you had different life experiences. Okay?
That's a good point. Yes, that's good.
Are there any books right now that are banned in this library?
No, we don't have any that are banned. I mean, I'm sure there's some that I can't like actually put in the library because of for certain reasons. They're like age level and stuff like age group and age level and stuff, but nothing banned. Nobody's ever come to me and said this is a horrible book. Taken off their shelves.
Do you mind clicking on?
Oh yeah.
I'm learning so much. The rights of both sides must be protected or neither will survive. That is also on the ALA website. So, I may not agree with the would-be censor, but it's okay for them to talk. That's actually First Amendment rights, so freedom of speech, right? Okay, is it right or wrong? Sometimes, can I click on one? So, censorship justification, these people who come in, they say why they want something censored. It's usually these four ideas. Is it offensive? Is it hateful? Is it, or the five ways, is it destructive? Is it younger people that will be influenced by bad ideas? And then also their interpretation of right versus wrong. What stuff should be censored? There is some stuff that, it's not every book that can come in the library. In fact, it went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they determined that there's some things that shouldn't be in the libraries that have nothing to do with intellectual freedom. These are actual censorship. Now, it's narrow categories. It's not a broad range of categories. It's actually narrow categories that are not protected by the freedom of speech. They include obscenity, defamation, which is basically hurting with words, and then also speech, which they call fighting words, speech that incites immediate and lawless action. So things that are like, hey, we need to get out there and fight, or incite a riot, that stuff is not covered under your First Amendment rights, and that's considered banned. Does that make sense? Okay. Again, narrow categories, but these things are appropriate. Where do libraries fit in? Well, censorship is exclusive. That means censorship seeks to take away, while libraries are considered inclusive, which I don't see as there for some reason. But more than not, libraries and librarians want to include literature for you so that you have multiple points of view. If you can't find something that represents your point of view, then ask your librarian, ask Mrs. Main, ask Mr. Pennington. Say, look, I'm really looking for a book about this or that. Can you help me? Because that's what they're there for. They want you to find something that represents your point of view. Okay, again, that's all about intellectual freedom. So that you can find what you need. The next slide. Can you go back one slide? Thank you. So, banned books. If you look at your handout, there's this box right there, and I included some pencils. What would be some positives? Think about it for a second. I'm going to give you a second to think about this and write it down. What's some positives for reading books like the examples I gave you, or some other books that you think might be banned? I'll give you another example of a banned book. In certain districts, Harry Potter was banned for a while because it was considered witchcraft. Okay.
When you list the causes, what is that? Is it okay for it to ban the book, or was it okay?
So this chart right here, when you do the T chart, what would be some positive reasons why you might read a book that would be banned? What are some positive reasons? What are some potentially negative reasons why the book might be banned? So take a minute to think about it, write it down, and then I'll ask for your suggestions.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's think about one last thought you want to write down. What are some positives for maybe reading a banned book? Okay, some positive aspects for doing that. Yes, sir.
I said it can give you like good information that you don't really hear before. It could relay powerful messages in a different way.
Okay, and I'm just going to repeat back so they can hear that recording. So you're saying good information that you don't normally hear, and then what was the second thing?
They can relay powerful messages in a different format.
Wow, that's really well said. Powerful messages in a different format. That's great. Yes, ma'am.
You can get different inputs from different people, and it can also get you to other religious and political beliefs.
Okay, different input from different people and introduce you to other religious and political beliefs. That's great, yes.
We could get more information on something.
More information on something. So maybe something that you weren't aware of or you're introduced to for the first time, right? Do you have something else?
Maybe you're interested in the topic and want to understand it more.
Explore the topic. Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir.
So then you can understand why some books get banned, and also learn some things from a banned book, and not make a banned book. If you're planning to make a book, then you can kind of learn from it.
Okay.
Don't make a banned book.
Okay, so reading the books, there's a lot in there. So
Yeah, so you could understand why books get banned.
why books get banned? So you get
And
more
understand
perspective.
why, and learn certain things from banned books. but also say don't make your own band book.
Okay, so learn certain things and not making your own band books. Sure. Did you have one? Yes.
You can like read about new ideas or certain topics that you've never really thought about.
Okay, certain topics, that's wonderful. What are some potential negative reasons that, potentially negative, how am I saying this? What's potentially negative about reading banned books? There you go. Yes.
It can introduce you to racism, religious discrimination, neglecting others' beliefs politically, and religiously.
Okay, okay, that's all really good. Did y'all hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, yes ma'am.
Strong language and hurtful actions can be put into the minds of the readers depending on their age, and it could actually show in their actions.
So age appropriateness, okay, yes.
Might go against something or like how that person feels. You might feel offensive.
Might feel offended, okay. Yes, sir. Yeah.
You can't introduce anything that you're not like mentally ready for.
Okay, great. Did you have one? Influence people to degrade, what else?
It could be a bad influence or too graphic, and then it could also kind of start a bad habit of
Bad habit with others, yeah. So, and I was talking with Mrs. Main. Do you go from
It's just
Main, okay. I was talking with Mrs. Main about this, and she, I'm going to say it because she put it so well. Really, this information is available, and some people are going to be concerned citizens, and they might try and ban a book, and it may or may not get banned for different reasons. But at the end of the day, it's your decision whether you want to read the book or not. So if you pick up a book and you don't like it, then you can put it down. Again, that's your choice to do that. Did I say that right? Okay. But the idea is that libraries provide information. It's more of a neutral ground. But your role in this is you pick books that you enjoy, that maybe you gain some knowledge from it, and it's worthwhile for you. And then if it doesn't, you don't like it, put it away, and you can go on to the next book. Yes, ma'am?
May I ask a personal question?
Sure.
What made you want to be a librarian?
Well, I've seen, like I said, I used to work here. I was the orchestra teacher here. Who's in orchestra? Several of you. So you're with Miss Blanco. And I used to teach where Miss Blanco was teaching. I really loved it. I've been a music teacher. Well, I've been playing the viola for 30 years, which is a long time. You what? You play the viola? You play the viola too? Awesome. And then I saw the incredible work that Mrs. Main is doing, and I was very intrigued by doing library sciences, and I love working with young people. I love working with you guys. I feel like I gain a lot of new perspectives, and I learn every day. So I decided to take a class in library sciences, even though I've been teaching for 8 years. And the more classes I took, the more I was like, I love this. This is great. I love reading. I read all the time. I turn in 2 books at my public library today because I'm constantly reading. I love getting information, and it really enriches my life. And the more I dove into it, the more I was like, this is it. So I love also doing that, but I was ready to make a little change.
So why do they ban books like that, like lyrics, like other books about like history or past, like this thing like the Holocaust or school or something like that? Why do they ban those books?
Then historical books. That's a good question.
Yeah, I can't really ban history. I mean, I guess you could, but it happened, you know? But I mean, they did ban Anne Frank. Like, yeah, the the Diary of Anne Frank, they did ban it in a couple of places. Yeah, well, there's some, I mean, the reasoning was ridiculous. It was a downer. It was pretty sad.
That's why they banned it.
Well, that's one of the reasons. And there is also there's a little bit of graphic material in there because she's alone. And, you know, not alone, but she's, you know, what, 13?
Yeah,
She was
that book was,
Was she, okay, well, she was a young teenage girl in an attic for years. I mean, so the things that go through your head and you get to see everything out in the world, just imagine not having access to that or that information and you don't know what's happening.
Yeah, they said they had to take out a few stuff in there because it was a little too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
But how are you gonna be exposed to this if you don't know what's out there?
it was her diary. You can't blame her for writing her diary.
Well, guys, I think it's time for pizza. Again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. I hope you learned something today. And so thank you very much. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
you'll be a great librarian.
Oh, there's pizza over here. Let me get the plate. The papers are yours to keep. Okay. Okay.